Well, I hope that you are doing well. I hope you're not ill, but I know of a lot of people that are sick right now. It seems like I say that every time. It seems like we just all stay sick year round, right? Or at least it seemed that way in the last couple of years. But as always, if you are sick, we certainly don't want you to be sick. So if we don't know about it, let us know. First and foremost, we want to be lifting your name up before the Father, but we also just want to let you know that we love you and we're here for you. And if we can do anything for you, we just ask that you would ask us. We're still in the book of Genesis. I feel like I have been saying for the last month, because I have been, that I'm ready to move on and get out of the life of Abraham. Still don't think that's going to happen tonight, but we will try our best. We're in Genesis chapter 23, and things are getting, we are starting to transition, I guess we might say, because as we can see from just the first two verses, that Sarah has now died, right? So let's get into the text. Sarah lived 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Now, first of all, notice that Sarah dies with honor. Right, she is she's the matriarch of God's people, right? So she lived a very important life. She did some really important things. She was involved, no doubt, in the plan that God had for her life and for Abraham's life as well. Now it's interesting because we get this note that she dies in this place called Hebron. Now, if we want a visual for where exactly Hebron is, maybe I can give you a mental visual. Go to Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem, and think about going probably about 20 miles south of Jerusalem into the Judean into the Judean hills, and you will find yourself at the city of Hebron. Now notice, it's in the land of Canaan, and Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. So notice, this is no doubt the custom. Abraham is obviously grieved by the passing of Sarah. He seems to have loved Sarah very much. What was involved in his lamenting, not sure, the text doesn't say, but perhaps he's doing the kinds of things that we see throughout Scripture. Maybe he tears his clothes, maybe he shaves his beard, maybe he fasts, maybe he puts on sackcloth. Who knows? Either way, he's deeply upset and is grieving at this point. But like every grieving person has to do, they have to set their grieving aside for just a day or two so that they can bury their loved one, right? So this is exactly what Abraham is dealing with. And we get to verse 3, and Abraham rose up from before his dead and said, notice, to the Hittites, I am a sojourner and a foreigner among you. Give me property among you for a burying place, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. Now we might wonder to ourselves, what in the world is Abraham doing by telling these guys that he is a foreigner and a sojourner among them? Well, by verbally telling these guys that, he is conceding his right, at least that is, we should probably be thinking, an inherent right to own property in Hebron, right? Now, I know that we've just read this, but let's not miss the connection. The city of Hebron at this time is being ruled by the Hittites. Okay, so we shouldn't be thinking that, these people are monotheistic, that they praise the one and only true God, Yahweh. That's not what we should be thinking, right? Abraham most certainly is a foreigner among them in that sense of the word, that he worships and serves the one and only true God. But I want us to notice, again, he concedes his right to own land among them. Now, what does this tell us about Abraham? Abraham, notice his faith and his trust again, right? Abraham is a man of faith. The New Testament makes that clear. He is the model of faith. Well, by Abraham just conceding his right, because we might be thinking to ourselves, well, he would have been in a better position to, maybe leave that detail out, and maybe they would just sell him the land anyway. It's almost like to us, he just shoots himself in the foot already. Hey, I'm a foreigner, so I'm about to ask you to buy land from you, but let me just tell you, you don't have to give me land because I don't have a right to the land. And maybe maybe what I'm saying is becoming a bit too redundant. The point is, God told Abraham, I'm going to bless those that bless you, and I'm going to curse those that curse you. Abraham fully believes that God will provide a place for him to put his wife to rest. Now, we keep going. The Hittites answered Abraham, right? Hear us, my Lord, you are a prince of God among us. Notice the noble title, right? Prince of God, mighty prince. They know who Abraham is. They've heard of Abraham. This just witnesses to the fact that God told Abraham, I'm going to elevate your status among the people of Canaan, okay? The people of Canaan are going to know about you because of the God that you serve. Notice they know who he is. He's a prince of God. But instead of giving Abraham really what he wants, they just go in halfway for him, right? They try to meet him halfway, I guess we might say. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. Now that's part of what Abraham said. Abraham said, give me, right? Give me a place to bury my dead. Now what he meant by that is, sell it to me. I just don't want a place to bury her. I want to own the place. I want to have ownership of the plot that you are going to give me. Well, the Hittites are unwilling to do that. They know who Abraham is. They want to honor Abraham. They want to show their respect to him and for his law. So they say, hey, listen, you want somewhere to lay Sarah to rest. Let us go ahead and tell you, we're not going to hinder your plans, okay? If anyone among us, that is, if all the Hittites among the, got myself confused here. The Hittites are saying, look, Abraham, the land is yours. You pick wherever you want to bury Sarah. None of us are going to say anything about it. But as far as this business is concerned about ownership, we're not on board for that. Well, Abraham rose and bowed to the Hittites. So again, notice that he rises. Most of these transactions would have taken place with the parties sitting down. When Abraham rises up, that shows his eagerness. And basically, I guess we might think of it as he's showing them that he's not willing to budge. When he says that he wants land to bury Sarah and he wants to own that land, that's exactly what he means, and he's not going to take anything less than that. But he's not being a jerk in the way that he does this, right? He does show them respect. He bows down before he, he rises up and then he bows down. And he said to them, if you are willing that I should bury my dead out of my sight, so okay, you have met me halfway, but look, I want a little more than what you're willing to give. Hear me and entreat for me Ephron, the son of Zohar. Now, that's interesting because we get the patronym for Ephron. If you're not an Israelite, you don't get that detail, the son of, right? So just because Ephron, who's a Hittite, right? He's not an Israelite. Because we get the son of Zohar detail, that shows us that he is a very important member of the community at Hebron, and the people recognized his esteemed status. That he may give me, notice what Abraham says, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he owns. It is at the end of his field. For the full price, let him give it to me in your presence as property for a burying place. Now, this might seem rather odd to us, because notice that Abraham tells the Hittites, who are listening to him, go tell Ephron this for me. Go give Ephron my offer. Why didn't Abraham just ask them to bring Ephron to him and they settled the transaction between themselves? Because that's not how transactions worked in the ancient Near East. Usually, a third party acted as a mediator between the different transactions. So this is exactly what we observe. You're going to hear me say notice a lot in this video. Notice, though, because the text just gives such important details, little details that we might be tempted just to skim over. For the full price, let him give it to me. Again, I'm not interested in just burying Sarah. I'm going to bury Sarah, and I am going to own the land that I bury her on. Now, Ephron was sitting among the Hittites, so there's no need, obviously Abraham wasn't aware, there's no need for the Hittites to go in to get Ephron because Ephron has heard the offer from himself straight from Abraham's mouth. Now, Ephron was sitting among the Hittites, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the Hittites of all who went in at the gate of his city. Notice the detail of gate. We've talked about the gate of the city a lot, how it's the hub of the hub of daily life in a city. Transactions take place at the gate of the city. No, my Lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. In the sight of the sons of my people, I give it to you. Bury your dead. In the presence of all the Hittites, Ephron says, I will accept your offer. You want to buy a plot of land for me? That's fine. But Ephron takes advantage of the situation because, don't miss what he said. I give you the field and I give you the cave that is in it. He used this situation to his advantage. He was already looking to get rid of more land than Abraham was asking for. He knew that Abraham really wanted land to bury Sarah, so he said, okay, he wants land. He wants to buy land. I'll give him land, but the only way that he's getting my land is if he takes more than he's actually asking for. But anyway, the ball's in Abraham's court now, right? The transaction that we see between Abraham and the Hittites is very slow and it's very indirect. That adds to the suspense of the story that we read about in Genesis chapter 23. Well, notice verse 12. Then Abraham bowed down before the people of the land. Notice again the respect that Abraham shows the people. And he said to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, but if you will hear me, I give the price of the field, accept it from me, that I may bury my dead there. Okay, Ephron, you want to give me the land only if I buy more land from you than I'm currently asking for at the moment. Fine. I'll buy it from you. Abraham has agreed, transaction complete. Now, money needs to change hands, right? My Lord, listen to me. This is Ephron speaking to Abraham, of course. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver, what is that between you and me? Now notice Abraham didn't say, well, I'll give you this for the field and the cave of Machpelah. That's not what Abraham said. Money is no object in the eyes of Abraham at this point. He just wants land to bury Sarah. That's what he's focused on. Well, Ephron, has graciously told Abraham, I'll sell you the field. Ephron says, hey, what about 400 shekels of silver? What's that between me and you? In other words, Abraham, this shouldn't be hard for you to do. This isn't going to hurt you financially. What is 400 shekels of, we might think, what's 400 shekels of silver to you? I mean, after all, when we read in the previous chapters about Abimelech of Gerar, he gives Abraham 1,000 shekels of silver. Okay, Ephron's only asking for 400 shekels of silver, and he tells him, of course, bury your dead. This obviously is why Abraham wanted the land. Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out from Ephron the silver that he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver according to the weights current among the merchants. Probably somewhere around 10 pounds, we should think. So the field of Ephron and Machpelah, which was to the east of Mamre, the field with the cave that was in it. Sorry, I lost my place. Yeah, the field with the cave that was in it, and all the trees that were in the field throughout its whole area was made over to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the Hittites before all who went in at the gate of the city. After this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, east of Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. The field and the cave that is in it were made over to Abraham as property. Notice, Abraham owns the rights to the land. He got what he wanted after all, for buying a place by the Hittites. Now, this land is going to be very important because big named people, you like how I said that? Big named people are going to be buried here in the cave of Machpelah with Sarah. Okay, let's go into Genesis chapter 24. Now Abraham was old, well advanced in years. The text goes out of its way to tell us that Abraham's old. Why? Because he's about to die. That's what we are to get from those details. And the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. So we've seen this time and time again. The Lord God has blessed every area of Abraham's life. That's exactly what he told Abraham he would do, and that's exactly what he has done up until this point, and he doesn't intend to stop. And Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he had, "Put your hand under my thigh, that I may make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell, but will go to my country and to my kindred and take a wife for my son Isaac." Now, I just said the text seems to be indirectly telling us Abraham's about to die. How do we know that? Well, we get the description like we just read. Abraham was old, well advanced in years. The text goes out of its way to tell us that. But Abraham is not taking care of this. Now notice, Abraham is obligated, right? God has said, I'm going to, bless you. You are going to have so many children that you can't even number. Your descendants are going to be, we should say, without number. It'll be like the sand of the seashore, stars of the sky, right? In order for that to happen, we needed the child of promise. God provided the child of promise, but as we know how making children works, you don't get children unless the man has a wife. So Abraham is obligated. God has held up his end. Abraham has an obligation to find Isaac a son so God can continue to work through the children of Abraham. Well, instead of Abraham taking matters into his own hands, he puts this matter into the hand of his servant. He entrusts his servant with this great obligation that tells us Abraham is so old that he's not able to take care of it himself. Again, he's about to die. But notice what he tells him. This is important. Put your hand under my thigh. All right. We're about to make a promise to each other. This is how it was done, by putting your hand under the person's thigh. And notice what he says. You got to go back to my hometown. All right. Isaac's wife has to come from the line of Terah. It has to. So I need you to go back to Haran, and I need you to find a wife for Isaac. Now notice again, do not go find him a wife in the land of Canaan. You need to go back to my hometown. This is important, and I'm emphasizing that because of it. The servant said to him, we can see the wheels turning in the servant's mind. Abraham has entrusted them with this great responsibility. He doesn't want to mess it up, so he's playing all the different scenarios. He's running through all the different scenarios in his mind of how this could potentially get messed up. And here's a way. Perhaps the woman may not be willing to follow me to this land? Must I then take your son back to the land from which he came? Okay, Abraham, let's say you don't want her to come from the land of Canaan. You want her to come from your hometown. So I'm going to travel back to your hometown. But let's say that I find her, but she's unwilling to come back to the land of Canaan with me. What am I to do then? Should I take Isaac from the land of Canaan and bring him back to your hometown? Well, notice what Abraham said. Abraham said to him, see to it that you do not take my son back there. God is going to bless his people with the land of Canaan, and they're going to have to stay in the land of Canaan. Everything unravels if Isaac goes back to Abraham's hometown. Remember, God called Abraham out of his hometown. There was a reason for that. The land of Canaan is where God's people are going to dwell, not in Abraham's hometown, or else he would never would have had to leave his hometown. So Abraham says, no. Under no circumstances are you to take Isaac and bring him back to my hometown, because if you do that, there's potential for Isaac just wanting to settle down there. And, of course, we can see everything's messed up at that point. See to it that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and who spoke to me and swore to me, to your offspring I will give you this land. So notice, this is exactly what Abraham says. This will mess everything up if you take Isaac back to my homeland. And you shall take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, okay, servant, you were wondering what happens if she's unwilling to come back to you. Here's what should happen. You'll be free from this oath. Only you must not take my son back there. So if you get down there and she says to you, I'm not going back to the land of Canaan with you, fine. Hey, wash your hands, right? You're free from the responsibility that I have asked of you. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master and swore to him concerning the matter. So notice that it took him a while before he was actually willing to swear to Abraham that he would do this thing for him. He wanted to make sure that he was going to be all right, that he was taken care of. He didn't let his master down. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking all sorts of choice gifts from his master. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. And he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at the time of evening, the time when women go out to draw water. So, of course, this is going to be a long journey that this servant is going to have to travel. So he doesn't go alone. He goes with other servants. He takes 10 camels, which would have been a lot for a journey. But also notice that he takes gifts. Why does he take gifts? Well, he takes gifts. So if he finds a bride, he can shower her with gifts. But he can also shower her family with gifts as well. So we don't get any details about how the journey went, how long it actually took. It jumps right into what happens at the evening when he arrives in Abraham's homeland. He's thinking to himself, how am I going to find a wife for Isaac? How am I going to bring to fruition what Abraham has asked of me? Well, if I'm looking for a wife, the servant thinks to himself, I could probably find one at the well in the evening. Why the evening? Because the evening, the sun's going down, it's not as hot, and young people would have been in charge of watering the flocks of the household. So they would go out at evening time, they would draw water from the well, and then they would feed the livestock. So he thinks maybe he'll catch a girl down there. And he said, O Lord, God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. This is covenant loyalty, right? This is the steadfast love. What exactly does that entail? Nobody really knows. You've made a covenant with Abraham. He's fulfilling his end, and if he's fulfilling his end, you said that you would fulfill his end, your end. So I know that you're going to direct the story here so that Abraham's son doesn't come up empty-handed. So in other words, we might just think, God, do your thing. Behold, I am standing by the spring of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. That's what they do. let the woman to whom I shall say, please let down your jar that I may drink, and who shall say, drink, and I will water your camels. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master. God, I realize that you're directing this story. I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to let Abraham, my master, down. So here's what I'm asking of you, great God. Show me a sign. And let me just go ahead and come up with the terms with the sign that I want shown to me, I guess we might say. I'll come up with the sign instead of God having to come up with the sign and telling the servant, here's what's going to happen. The servant just says, hey, when a young woman comes down, I'm going to ask her for some water. If she gives me water, great. But if she also fills up to it, I guess we might say, to water my camels as well, if she's willing to go the extra mile, this is the one. That's how I'll know. All right, we'll finish right here. Chapter 24 is an extremely long chapter. It's pretty much like 2.5 chapters in and of itself. So we'll stop right here. This is where we'll pick up next week. I hope you have a great rest of the week. I can't wait to see everybody Sunday. God bless.